Abraham, when he was called to go out into a place which he should after receive for an inheritance, obeyed. And he went out not knowing whither he went. By faith he sojourned in the land of promise as in a strange country, dwelling in tents, tabernacles with his sons Isaac and Jacob, heirs with him of the same promise. For he looked for a city which had foundations, whose builder and maker is God. On this Children's Day, I just wanted to lift up this theme, children called to greatness. Children called to greatness. The text of which we have read this morning is a call to greatness. It is the Hebrew writer's expression of a narrative that was actually given first in Genesis. When you look at that Genesis narrative and that passage in Genesis chapter 12, you will come to find that there was one called Abram before he was ever designated Abraham. This one, Abraham, the Jewish sojourn, God called him out in that chapter 12 to say to him, get out of your country, get away from your kindred, move from your father's house, and go to a land I will show you. And then he said to him, if you follow these directions, I will make of you a great nation. Let me be clear in the onset of this message is you need to first of all be careful of people who are less than God that tells you they can make you great again. It's kind of hard to make somebody great again that you didn't make great the first time. If there's any greatness in you, it's only because of the God that's in you. Greatness is not based on proclamation, because we got a lot of talk going on of people who want to talk their way into greatness. But if talking alone was the recipe for greatness, then let me just say to you that there's a whole lot of rappers that ought to be on top of the world by now, because they talk a lot faster and a lot longer than a whole lot of us can in a whole day's time. But greatness is not based on proclamation but performance. It's based on not what you say but what you are willing to sacrifice and do. King said anybody can be great because everybody can serve. Service is not something that you give in lip service, but in life service. You're programmed for greatness because God didn't make no junk. You don't have to worry about somebody making you great again. You just got to realize the greatness God has already placed in you. Can't you see it when you watch these children? Some of the same ones people want to call bad, misbehaving, got all these letters for B, D, L, D, LMNOP. School systems that are willing to label them quickly for their activity or for their inability to conform. But maybe the person who has the problem is not the child, but the one who's supposed to be teaching them. Maybe the learning disability is not the child, but those who don't adapt their teaching styles to how the child can learn. Oh, I'm talking good already. I don't know what you mean. Maybe the problem is not the behavior of the child, but the behavior of the teacher that does not want to spend time with them, but are quick to want to call the police or principals or others because they don't want to put time in before they put them in time out. Maybe the labels have been misplaced because we forget that somebody had to put up with us. Maybe the labels are misplaced because somebody has forgotten that we wasn't the most respectful, responsible children. The only reason why some of us didn't get in worse trouble or locked up or on some YouTube clip is because they didn't have no YouTube out that time. Wasn't no Facebook, Snapchat, other things to put it out there. It wasn't nothing to promote that. And the same token, one of the reasons why some of us did not get to a point of wilding out, because we had some responsible teachers that did not mind putting the Board of Education to your seat of understanding, and they didn't have to call nobody in the classroom. They straightened you out right where you were and then called your mama and told them what they did, and you got it again. They worked at least in harmony. They had stuff called PTA meetings that people used to go to. Come on, talk to me here. You wasn't no such thing as you've been able to misrepresent what your grades were because your mama or your daddy knew what the grade was before the grade card ever came out because they visited and talked to them on a regular basis. You didn't have much choice but to be able to exercise levels of greatness because the expectations were higher. People put stuff over the heads of children that were crowns that they had to grow into because there was no free lunch other than what you got with a carton of chocolate milk and a cookie. The only free lunch it was that snack you may have gotten before during school, but you had to work your way to greatness. And if you were caught misbehaving, you either had to go to the board and write up on the board 100 times what it was you did, or had to pull out your good loose leaf notebook paper and write it 500, 1,000 times because the board wasn't big enough. Or had to get the erasers and go and clap that chalk, clean them for the teachers, or get that pointer. You know that little long stick with the little black thing on there. And if you didn't get that lesson right away, they would take that and a whacker. Would take that ruler they was used to measure stuff with, but it went right across your knuckles sometime. I ain't even talking just in public schools. Amen. Catholic schools was just as good as were parochial school, whatever school you had. Sunday school, it didn't matter what kind of school. Greatness was the expectation. And when you got home, it wasn't no time out, it was knockout if you did not behave. But the point was that they weren't trying to abuse or misuse, because the difference in discipline and abuse is love, an expectation for greatness. And they did that because they knew not that they were trying to put some kind of greatness in you, like some people with these cockamamie formulas that they think they can come up with and flying by the seat of their pants to believe that they can deal with sensitive public policies and things that have been worked among for presidents and leaders for years at a time, delicate negotiations that are necessary for people to learn how to work and live and coexist along with each other. And then we get sometime Yahoo cowboys who come believe they can cut a deal just because they built a building. But there's a difference in building buildings and building lives, because you can destroy quicker than you build. Doesn't take much time to tear a building down, but it takes years sometime to build one up. And so it is with the lives of these young people. Doesn't take much time to say things that will destroy them. But it takes years, constant dialogue and love and expectations over time to help them understand the greatness, watch this, that God has already placed in them. We don't have to make them great. We just need to call the greatness out of them. The greatness that they have is a connected greatness, generational greatness, greatness that is linked back ancestral. For they're linked not to just slaves, and even they had the power to yearn to breathe free. But they're linked to kings and queens. Imhotep, Ashanti, Cleopatra, those who came before them, many who built pyramids that haven't fallen down yet. Many of them who wrote hieroglyphics and alphabets of math and things that ultimately other folk had to learn after they came from Egypt that they've tried to take away from the mother continent, all the way down to the tip of South Africa. Greatness looms in their ancestral loins, and we must call forth the greatness that is already in them. God doesn't make any junk, and no matter what color the child may be, we must help them understand it's not the color of the balloon that makes it rise, it's the quality of the gas that's on the inside. And if you put the right stuff on the inside, it will help the elevation of where they can become. This call to greatness is something that we must begin to take serious, because it used to be the children started off with a positive outlook that lasted at least to the third grade. You could ask a young child what they wanted to be, and they'd be in kindergarten, ooh, 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 ooh. They'd be looking to try to say whatever it wanted to be, and the role models that they had seen would be the kind of things that they would want to be. But now, not only has the light seemed to gone out on many of them, but the only thing they look at is the stuff you let them be babysit by on video games and television sets. And the only thing they aspire for are things that they have been exposed to, and we have not exposed them to the greatness of our land. Yes, they could become doctors and lawyers, Indian chiefs, and all of that kind of stuff we used to talk about if they could see some. Too often, even in our own situations, we've allowed, even in the church that used to be the gathering place for all people, but some people have graduated from even coming to the house of God, so they can't really see what a physician or a judge or a lawyer, a doctor look like, because at some point, we'd rather make a tea time than come for prayer time. We'd rather make our bowling league than make our choir rehearsal. We'd rather be able to come to hear and see what they are saying on Facebook than to come and put your face in the good book and hear what the Lord has to say. We have traded off our conveniences at the expense of our children. And what happens over time, they become reprogrammed. They can't be great if parents keep saying, you just like your daddy, at a negative moment of the conversation. They can't be able to be great when you telling them you act just like your mama. Say it with your hair snapping just like. Y'all know when y'all got the little attitude, hey man, that ain't just women, men too. But when you talking like this, ain't nothing good coming out of that conversation. Neck looser than a crane. When you have a kind of put down, kind of tone talk in your voice, when you're speaking to a child, you got to call forth the greatness that is in them because of those who birthed them. The only time you can refer to someone who is their parental covering is with a negative tone, it doesn't just demean them, but it makes you look bad because they couldn't get here by themselves. So at some point, old boy had to be all right. He was good for at least 10 minutes somewhere along the way. Old girl had to be. She was better, amen, than you talking about her right now, amen, on that particular night. So why don't you talk about the good you can find and cut all that other stuff out? So if you can't say nothing else, and when you're looking and say, you know what, she may be acting up now, but boy, back in the day, your mama was sure something else, boy. She was something else. Find something good you can lift up. Teachers saying you're not smart enough. Your job ain't to call children dummies. Your job is to help the dummy in them become smart. Everybody's ignorant, including you. Well, nobody born with everything. Everybody born with a clean slate, a blank slate, and somebody's got to write on the pages positive language. Truth is that when you are too lazy to teach all of them and want to do what some people do and get you a group over here that you can handle and call them the little reading blue jays and the little red buzz, and then you got the little buzzards over there you don't want to be bothered with. You're setting up dichotomies that many of them will never grow from. If they never get a chance, well, when they have their hands raised that they want to be answered because they got people who ultimately don't believe they can learn, or you keep exposing them to people who you don't balance the learning out, who some people give them revisionist history or understanding about themselves, or some people who came from places and cultures where they have never seen some of the children they got to teach and learn from. And if we don't begin to become teachers again and begin to balance out the classroom, male and female, with both black and white and brown and yellow and others, our children would not understand what it means to live in a multicultural society, because you can be sensitive in one sense, but you can only be aware when you come from where the children are trying to learn from. Which means you've got to teach as much at home as they teach in school. Which means you have to at least bring them to a place where they can learn about God. Stop complaining about ain't no prayer in school. It is prayer in school. Every time they take out a test, it's a whole bunch of prayer in school. When they say close your books, amen, turn down your, take out your pencils, prayers get up everywhere. Come on, talk to me here. But I don't look for public schools or colleges or universities to teach them about their faith. That's your job, to be able to teach them first in the home and then bring them to the house of worship where they can learn what God has to say about who they are and greatness. And stop trying to blame somebody else for what you refuse to do for yourself. Even coaches don't want to work with all students. You too small, you too little, you too slow, you ain't big enough, I want to win. You got to sit on the bench. There's some point, at some level, you got to give everybody a chance so you can see what they got in them. Counselors who never even give you a chance to read the Lovejoy book. They still got Lovejoy books out there? That's what it used to be called. They didn't throw it around. Yeah, it used to be a book where you learn all the colleges. Amen. And Lovejoy gone. Oh, God, they got rid of Lovejoy. Oh, man. Every counselor had a Lovejoy book. And in it, you could go and read and see what kind of colleges there were that would fit the skill levels or the aspirations of what you want. And they would start with you as a freshman even and start looking at where you might want to go so you would have something to work towards. They didn't wait till your last semester before you trying to say now what you want to be, where you want to go, what you want to do. Listen, sometimes it's too late then to chart out a course, to be able to do that, because most kids, if you leave them to themselves, they're going to take a bunch of gym classes, or they're going to take something easy A's or grades, but they're not going to do anything that would challenge the things that will help them to learn. Counselors should guide them in the right direction, but we got too many counselors, if you can find them, if they ain't on some break or sleep or got the door locked, if you can get close to them, they tell too many of our children, you're not cut out for college, and track them to some place that no longer exists. Used to didn't bother some people because you could track them to a factory, they could get a decent job, take care of a family, earn a decent wage. But those jobs are no longer existent. They didn't go to better labor, they gone to cheaper labor that we're now putting tariffs on, and it's going to become even more non-existent because they're going to be robots that's going to be doing stuff that you and your friends used to do from 9 to 5. We have to teach our children to read. We must teach our children to write. And I didn't just say text and tweet, because there's something about writing, putting pen to parchment, pen to paper, that transfer of knowledge takes place. They no longer teach cursive writing in school. They no longer teach them how to be able to share their thoughts. So you got to balance what they don't do and give them that greatness so that they can become, because the only way they get to Abraham age is they got to start with somebody who puts something in them so God can call it out of them. The reason why God can call Abraham in this text is because somebody has something in him God could call out of him. But you have to begin when they're children. Train up the child so you don't have to chain up the teenager. Who told you you were average? Who told you you couldn't learn? Adam, who told you you were naked? You're God's masterpiece, not Satan's centerpiece. God programmed you to be the head and not the tail, the lender, not the borrower, above and not beneath. You're not below average. You're above those whose expectations are too low for you. You're not the victim, you're the victor. We are not the conquered, we are more than conquerors. And when people, young people and children, particularly I'm talking to you, when they talk to you in those lowering, demeaning, degrading terms, then you need to do what you do on Facebook when somebody ain't talking right to you. Block them or push the delete button. You ain't no good, delete. You'll never be nothing, block. Now, you ain't got to say nothing because you might get jacked, but you need to, at least in your mind, reject negative messaging that doesn't apply to you. And if somebody calls you a dog, please don't bark. Because sometimes we manifest in our reactions the very thing they're trying to push us and relegate us to. Be the bumblebee and not the honeybee. You see, because you can leave the top off a jar of honeybees, and if you leave the jar off the top with honeybees on the inside, truth is you don't have to worry about it because none of them are going to fly out. Because they are programmed to fly in circles, but they never fly high. Honeybees will fly all around, and they'll fly on each other, and they make some stuff, but they'll never fly out because they don't look up. Well, Pastor, why you say be the bumblebee then? Because the bumblebee shouldn't be able to fly at all. Oh, come on, you seen the bumblebee, got a big old body and little bitty wings. And by the true laws of scientific errors and gravity, the bumblebee should never be able to fly anywhere with the weight of his body and the smallness of his wings. So why can the bumblebee do it? I'll tell you why. Because nobody told the bumblebee he couldn't do it. And when you get to the place where you stop letting people tell you what you can't do, you can fly high like a bumblebee, even if you ain't got wings, they say, big enough to carry you. You ever see a big person walk like they small? You ever see a beauty challenged person walk like they fine? You ever see a broke person walk like they rich? As that great poet Lauderdale says, like they got oil fields and diamond mines. Why do you think that people walk that way when they ain't that way? And if they walk that way long enough, you'll swear they are who they're walking and talking like they are. Why? Because they refuse to let you tell them anything negative. When you allow people get in your spirit, when you let people to get in your messaging, when you let people get in your tape room, when you let people begin to tell you something different than God already told you, then you can never be able to embrace how Abram made it into this hall of faith, because the Bible says that when God told him to get up and leave everything that he had, every place that was comfortable, all the people who helped raise him, everybody who he had worked with, gone to grade school with, Pookie, Ray Ray, and even Slim couldn't even go with him. He said, get up and go out. He says the only reason why he got to the place of greatness is not because he negotiated, it's not because he relegated, it's not because he procrastinated. The Bible says he obeyed. So let me just say to you, in this next point, greatness has to begin with a benediction. Somebody say, greatness has to begin with a benediction. You got to be open to making adjustments. If God says get out, then you don't need to be trying to make yourself more comfortable. When God says move on, then you don't need to be trying to hunker down. When God says it's trying to move up, then you need to stop looking to start asking who going with me. And the reason why some people never make it to greatness is because you're waiting on your friends to come. You're waiting on your company to kick in. You're waiting on your partner to hang in. But at some point, you will come to find out that there's a distance with God that only you can go, and only obedience will get you there. And you got to begin with a benediction. I know the benediction is something at the end. Benediction is something that about 12 of y'all waiting for me to give right now. But the truth is, you got to learn how to say goodbye to some things before you can say hello to other things. You got to learn how to shut some things off in order to open some things up. What got you here to this level must be forsaken to get to the next level. What got you $100 might get you 1,000, but it ain't gonna get you 1,000,000. Reason why some shade tree mechanics never become shop owners and dwellers. Reason why some kitchen magicians working on your kitchens in your head never become salon beauticians is because some people never get rid of a hustle mentality. Baby, you can't hustle all your life. It may be a good start. It may be good to get you off the ground. But sometimes you got to give up the hustle and bustle and learn to move into greatness. You got to stop trying to just make ends meet and start meeting yourself at the end. You got to stop playing gigs for everybody else and learn to be your own MD. Because if all your life everything you do is for somebody else's benefit and somebody else's blessing, you'll never be a millionaire punching the clock for somebody else. At some point, you're going to have to find something you do that's generated by you. Oh, yeah, you can still do something to support other people's vision and to be able to be a part of something else. As long as there's a quid pro quo mutuality in it, you can share your gift as long as somebody respects you and enough to take care of you for that. But that can't be all you do. You can't spend all your days and nights and times working, getting up 9 to 5, going, coming home, getting you a sandwich, looking at a couple of TV shows, then talk to a couple of people, tweet a little bit, talk a little bit, chat a little bit, go to sleep, wake up in the morning, wash your face, get up, start all over again, punch in 9 to 5, come home, get your little sandwich, then you're going to watch another little show, watch the game, come on, sit around, cheat a little, chat a little bit, put a little bit, hunt a little bit, whatever. You're going to get up the next morning, 9 to 5, next thing you know, it's Friday, might go to a little party a little bit, get a little bit in, get up a little bit, come to church, get a little 8 o'clock service, church a little bit, then come up, morning, 9 to 5, here we go. Listen, if your cycle of life continues in the same way, but you never shut down some time where you work on the greatness that's in you, the reason why God birthed you and purposed you, and try to do something with that vision that God has given you, you will continue to be on the gerbil wheel of life, but never excel and soar to the place God calls you to. Abram, come out of there. And he obeyed. There comes a time you got to hear God's voice. It says, get thee out of there. Now, don't get me wrong. Some folk always like to hear people say get out, and they want to get up and move because they ain't moving to greatness. They trying to make a great escape. I ain't talking to you if you ain't doing nothing. I ain't talking to you if you just scared of what somebody's saying about you. I'm not talking to you if you just trying to find a new place to give your old gimmicks and your old tricks. I'm not talking to you if you're not in a place of settling to understand who and whose you are. The greatness call only comes to people who are already purposed and working and have maximized what they have done the best they could at this level, and like a stick shift, they're ready to shift to a higher gear. But ain't no need of trying to go to another degree of moving forward if you still stuck in reverse. And if all your life you spend looking through the rearview mirror, talking about yesterday, how you used to be, what you used to do, what we used to have, how we used to do it. You got to be careful of people always wanting to bring up the good old days. Because if they was that good, they never would have left them. People don't, you know, when I was down, so then what'd you come up north for? There's a reason you up here. Come on to me. At some point, we always want to glamorize yesterday's pain because we don't want to face today's possibilities. But you need to face the fact that the rearview mirror is just for glancing, but the windshield is so much bigger. You got to look forward. Abram could have easily said, but God, I got so much stuff I done here. I got all this stuff around here. I got all these people. But God said, I want you to come out because I got something better. I got something greater. And what I'm enjoying even about this season of some of my children and young people is that they're getting beyond the borders of Detroit. They're getting beyond the borders of Michigan. They're getting beyond the borders of others. And they're getting out and discovering that there's a great big old world out there. And they got to stake their place in it. And yes, they should and hopefully will come back and make the place where they have come to be birthed and great again. But sometimes you don't know what to give if you don't know what you got. And you got to get away sometime from people who treat you like you will never grow up. And I'm not saying that you ought to have the wings of a bird that never returns, because David prayed for the wings of a dove. Because doves, even when it flies away for temporary peace and rest, it comes back to the place where it left. And some people just want to escape and even use religion as an escape. and even using the excuse of why they're not doing whatever they're doing as a reason and escape. But the only people who use excuses are people who need them. At some point, you got to begin to take your purpose and let it become the reason why you keep on taking, as Brother Laird said this morning, your shot. Because even if you miss a bunch of shots like Steph Curry did in one game, listen, he was making them all kinds of ways, making it rain every kind of way in the first, second game, but he had more bricks than a local apartment building in that third game. He couldn't find nothing. 9 straight misses, but the coach never took him out the game. When he wanted to come, he would sit down, and others because he wanted, then the Curry basically said, and maybe those King James Version, get thee out of the locker room and get thee off the bench and get thee on the court and keep shooting. And when it mattered, you never know when your moment will come. It begins with a benediction. But not only that, greatness not only begins with a benediction, but it requires that you move in covenant relationship with the one who called you. You see, because the reason why you are dealing with greatness is because you don't take yourself, even though you need to make sure you know greatness is in you, you need to know your greatness is not all about you. Because some people go from too low a self-esteem to thinking more highly of yourself than you ought. That's the best King James I can give you. But you got to be careful of people that turns every sentence to something about themselves. I know you don't know nobody like that. I know you don't hear on a regular basis people talking about somebody like that, but it's kind of tough when every time something comes on, no matter what the news is, they're going to have a way of twisting it to be something about themselves. The difference in arrogance and confidence is who you putting your trust in. Arrogant people think they're making it by pulling themselves up by their own bootstraps and because they're making it because of who I am. But confident people have the same strength, the same standing up, the same straight backbone, but they're not doing it based on who they are, but whose they are. They know that I'm a child of God, and God don't make no junk, and God's got my back, and I can give it my best because I'm in covenant relationship with somebody that's going to help me achieve my greatness. True greatness is a result of a covenant. Watch this in the text that Abram had not on his part, but on God's part. One of the things that the Hebrew writer reflected on was what God told Abram in Genesis 12. Because the reason why he not only was able to move with no abandon and obeying the voice of God, because God's promise was in his ear. What was he saying to him? I'll tell you what he said. He said, I will make of thee a great nation. And then he says, I will bless you. Then he says, I'm going to make your name great. Ain't it good to have somebody whispering good stuff in your ear? And then he says, I will make you a blessing. And then he says, I will bless them that bless you. I will curse them that curse you. And I will make and cause all the families of the world to be blessed by you. When you got somebody talking great stuff in your ear, you can't help but become great. And if God is talking that kind of talk on one side, then you got to shut the devil off on the other side. And too many people are so busy listening to the wrong message that you can't hear God telling you, because God don't talk as loud as I am right now. But softly and tenderly. God ain't going to compete with all them voices you want to listen to. God ain't going to compete with all them people you exposing yourself to. God is not going to, he's a gentleman at all times, but he don't speak in the thunderclouds and in the big tornadoes and the wind. He speaks in a still small voice. And softly and tenderly, Jesus is still calling. And he'll be there when all that other stuff flies away. He'll be there when all those other failures come. But how much time are you going to waste having to start over and over and over again Because you refused to listen to the right voice the first time. When you're in a covenant relationship with God, just remember that doesn't make you the principal partner. You're just a beneficiary that God will allow to work his greatness through. He made a covenant not with you, he made the covenant with himself. See, God made a covenant about your greatness before you were ever born. Ooh, y'all gonna make it tough on me today. Y'all know I ain't been preaching for a while now. I mean, y'all at least look, amen. I said God made the covenant about your greatness before sperm ever found egg. Before ooh ever met ah. Oh, y'all just too slow with me. I mean, you need to know that the covenant of who you were to be was already formed when God spoke your existence into being. What you have to do is to become the conduit, the wire, the vehicle that God's power can work through. Why? Because God wants a witness about himself. He wants the world to see how he can do greatness over and over again. You produce whatever you're connected to. So you can't tell me that you're hanging with the right people and everything you produce is negative. You can't tell me you're in the right company and everything that you're dealing with is opposite of what you're talking about. See, because some people believe that they can be connected to negativity and produce positive results. But I just want to say to you that just because you drive your Pinto into the Cadillac dealership and park it next to one, don't make you one. If you want to be great, it can only happen when something or somebody greater makes you, because they have the capacity to do so. Be careful when somebody's promises to make you great ends up with someone who ultimately has never shown greatness themselves. Can I tell you what my daddy said? It ain't Father's Day yet. But my daddy said, never let a loser tell you how to win. Be careful of negative thoughts because they act like bad viruses that mess up your software that God gave you. You got to be careful of these viruses that easily can come in and take the good software that God made and put in you and programmed for you. And then you let these viruses get in, and these viruses begin to corrupt what God has given you. Viruses such as you can't do it. Viruses such as you're not old enough. Viruses like you're too young. Viruses like you're not talented. Viruses like you're too broke. You're the wrong color. You're too ugly. You're too addicted. You're the wrong class. You're the wrong gender. You're on the wrong side of town. You're the wrong this or that. You got to be careful that you get you an antivirus program called the Bible and make sure that you debug anything that tries to come and corrupt what God has already said about you. Look at your neighbor and say, God has already programmed me, so I can't let you change the program. I don't care who you married. They ain't licensed to change your program. I don't care who your child is, your mama is, your daddy is, they ain't licensed to change your program. I don't care who your pastor is, other than me, of course. But nobody is licensed to change your program. I don't care who the president is. He can pardon whoever he thinks he want to pardon, but he cannot change the program. Because if they're real criminals, they're going back again anyway. Greatness, thirdly, is a commitment determined by who you're listening to. I just thought I'd slow that one down in case you wasn't listening. I said greatness. Number 3 is a commitment determined by who you're listening to. Life is not just pursuing the right destiny, but making the right decisions along the road to that destiny. Abraham had a lot of voices, but he heard God say go. And when he heard God say go, he stopped listening to those who said stay. Don't you think he had people in his ear when God said go to say you can't go nowhere? Who you think you is? You know, that's how they probably may have, revised black version. You come from the same. See, one of the things that hurts some people who learn and actually have done better about themselves is to turn around and go back to some of the same people who wasn't about nothing, still ain't about nothing, and let them bring you back and talk you back into where you left from. You might as well have never gone to better yourself in the first place if you're going to go and recontaminate yourself with people who, because people always say, who you think you are. You got to be careful of those famous last words. You ain't no better than nobody else. I ain't talking about your family. I'm talking about your mama. I'm talking about grandma. There are some people who decided to break the generational curse of governmental control, and when you decide to do for yourself and make it for yourself and say, I thank God for the assistance that we had before, but I think I can make it on my own. You've gone to college and others, and then you come back and they trying to think you ain't no good because you ain't applying for no food stamps because you ain't got no bridge card. At some point, the reason why I don't have it is because I got my own now. And stop letting people think that they are better than you in order to bring you down to their level instead of asking them to pull you up to yours. Yes, there ought to be support if you need it. There ought to be, because the truth is that which you had, they took it. And reparations have never been given for some people in this world in life, and there's never been a Marshall Plan for people who needed it the most. But stop letting that be your excuse for never becoming great. Stop saying because what nobody ever did won't make the difference. Because the game ain't never always going to be fair. If you still stuck on the fact that they called a foul on me in the first quarter, you're never going to make the goal and the basket in the fourth quarter. If you still stuck on the bad shot on the golf course on the third hole, you're never going to finish off and beat the man on the 18th hole. You got to learn to forget some stuff and count it as bad and say, I'm going to do twice as much to come back and defeat my mistake. Abraham learned that disobedience leads to disorder and dysfunction and defect and ultimately disaster. I'm closing when I tell you the devil knows your appetite. I said the devil knows your appetite. Well, he knows the stuff you like, and as soon as you get ready to do something great, everything you like gonna start showing up. You ever figure that out? Every time you decide you want to do the right thing, the right way, at the right time, all of a sudden all that stuff that wasn't coming through start kicking in. Old boy ain't been acting right for 6 months. Soon as you decide you about to move on and get ready, all of a sudden, here come the flowers. Here come the candy. Hey, boo. You sitting in church, he come walking in with a suit and tie on. I thought I'd get up and come to church with you there. Oh, Jesus! I know I'm supposed to stay. No! No! Run! Go to the next service. The devil knows your appetite. See if he come next week. You know, if you met her where it rained and it ain't in the forecast. That the possibilities of her being a loyal housewife might be minimal. But be careful of people who can shake what their mama gave her but can't make what their mama taught them. And I ain't just talking about biscuits. I'm talking about the ability to make a life and a living. Because you need to know you don't take two to become great. God can make you great all by yourself. I'm done. Arabian horses are trained by denying them water for long periods of time. Then once they're presented some water, the trainer blows the stop whistle. Those who stop, they employ them into the service. But those who can't stop drinking stay in training. But they train them to understand that greater than your passion and your appetite and your thirst ought to become your ability to follow your commanding officer. When God says anything along your journey, it doesn't matter what you're doing and how long you've been doing it. The question is, can you hear God's voice? And the reason why some people get messed up is not that you veered off the path, not that you're prone to wander, because all sheep are prone to stray. The problem is when you hear the shepherd calling, when do you stop where you're going and say, I hear my Savior calling? Because it's that call of the one who made you great first that is able to bring you to the place of Abraham's destiny. Why is that important? Because the Bible says, Abraham said, it ain't just about me, but I got some people who are traveling with me. Isaac and Jacob, those ones that was in the text, were those who followed along with Abram, and they also were people who were destined for greatness. But their greatness could not have come if Abram had not set the example. God may not be trying to get you to change your physical location. He just may be trying to get you to decide to change your mindset. He may not be trying to change what you may be physically located in, but he's trying to get you to change who's in charge where you are. Because you don't need to change, yes, your kin, but you may need to change your king. The real test was not evidenced in where he was going, but who he was listening to. Greatness is a result of who's got my ear, and whoever has your ear will get your heart. God is asking somebody, hey, can I talk to you? Problem with many of us is when you hear preaching, at some point God is trying to tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, I'm talking to you. But we get so preoccupied with what we are trying to do, and Satan distracts us with the appetites that he has for you that you can't hear God saying, this ain't for them, it's for you. Maybe that's the real reason Abram had to leave. God ain't going to compete with whoever has your ear. He waits to get you away from whoever has you preoccupied or occupied. And then he says to you, I got better. I got greater. I got more. And even if you're a child, I want you to hear me that you need to know that God don't need you to turn 21 before he talks to you about becoming a great person. You don't have to get to the place of having a high school diploma before he can put greatness in you. You need to know before you ever enter into grade school, you can declare your greatness. Because greatness is not determined by your gift, but it's ultimately determined by God's grace. I'm not great nor blessed based on where I am, but who I'm connected to. Greatness is something that God promised me because I got a connection with God. They won't let me shut off where I am. Because Abram had something that was working for him long before technology ever produced it. We got something called GPS, which is a global positioning system that allows you, once you put the coordinates in, that no matter where you are, if you allow yourself to put it in and trust the voice, it will take you from where you are to where you're trying to get to. So I'm closing by telling you that if you're stuck on any part of your journey in life and know that you're supposed to be moving into greatness, just make sure that wherever you are, you're not building brick buildings, but you're pitching a tent. And when you pitch a tent, what you're trying to tell everybody around you is I'm here for a minute, but I ain't staying long. Can I get a witness here? So maybe I may be on this job, working this 9 to 5, but I'm not here building no buildings. I'm here pitching a tent. You need to declare to them, I'm here for a minute, but I'm not staying long. Can I get a witness here? Maybe you might be in a situation where you have to live in certain conditions for now, and you got to make do with where you are and make it good in the hood. But don't you build permanent buildings. You need to pitch a tent and tell them, I may be here for right now, but I'm not staying long. Can I get a witness here? And no matter where you are in life, you need to know that when you, yes, pitch a tent, it suggests temporary dwelling. That's why in the Old Testament, when they were moving on their way to Promised Land, God never gave them the ability to build any permanent dwelling place. But everywhere they went, yes, they would pitch a tent. Even the place of the church where God visited them was called the tent of meetings. It was a temporary place because God would show up in whatever place as station in the desert, but they couldn't stay there too long because the hot desert sands would overcome them. But they had to keep moving in the right direction. Well, how did they know what direction to go in? Well, God gave them his own GPS system. It was called a pillar of cloud in the day. Can I get a witness here? And a pillar of cloud in the night. Yes, so he didn't plan on them ever stop moving toward greatness. Oh Lord, and in the daytime, there was a cloud that they had to follow, and you had to get out of the crowd and follow the cloud. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, stop following the crowd and follow the cloud, because the cloud is moving in the right direction. And when the cloud was moving, they had to walk in the day and follow where the Lord would lead. It didn't look like they understood it all the time, but they just had to follow the cloud. Sometimes they couldn't see Moses because it was 6 million deep. But if they couldn't see the man in the front, they could see the cloud in the sky. Is there anybody here that knows that you ought to be able to see God for yourself? Can I get a witness here? Maybe you can't find your deacon, and maybe you don't know where the location of the pastor, but you ought to be able to find, yes, where you can follow where the Holy Ghost is leading you. Because where he leads is where I'm going to follow. I'm getting happy here right now because not only am I following the cloud in the day, but it gives me fire in the night. Because even when it's nighttime, he don't expect me to be stationary. What does that mean? It means when things ain't going so good, I still gotta follow. It means when things ain't working so well, I still gotta go. It means when things ain't working the way I thought they should, he don't expect me to sit, but he expects me to serve, because it gives me fire in my night. And I don't need a big fire, but if I can see the little bit of light, I'll keep on moving. Is there anybody here that made it this far because you never quit in your depression? You kept on walking in the night. Is there anybody here that made it this far because you never stopped believing you could be healed, but you kept on walking in the night? Is there anybody here that know that you made it this far because when everybody left you, you know God said, I'll never forsake you, and he kept on leading you? Not just in the daytime when things were well, but I got about 100 of y'all that know God needs some nighttime walkers who knows how to walk at night. Can I get a witness here? I've been in places where I've driven in the day and I could see where I'm going, but I took that same road at night and couldn't find my way.
Can I get a witness? But thank God for something called the Holy Ghost that works like a GPS system. Because sometimes in the night when you can't find your way, you can hear that voice talking to your phone. You're going in the wrong direction. And when you hear that voice talking, you may not know where to go, but you know where not to go. Some of y'all got that GPS that tells you when you're going right. It'll show you a line and keeps you moving. But if you make a wrong turn, you'll see something say rerouting, because God knows how to take you from a bad place in your life and reroute you and get you on the right place. But you gotta listen when you hear that voice say you're going in the wrong direction, because the Holy Ghost knows how to speak up when you have shut up. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, I've been on the road and I've gone in the wrong direction. I've been to some places I should not have been. I did some things I should not have done. I've been with some people I should not have been with. I said some things I should not have said. And I've done some things I said I'd never do. Oh, I wish I had some real people in here. But aren't you glad when greatness is in you, greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. I got somebody. He talks with me. He walks with me. He tells me that I'm his own. Grab somebody by the hand and grab them real good. Hold them by the hand and don't turn them loose. Shake them and rock them. Rock them and shake them. And say, neighbor, neighbor, be not dismayed. Whatever betide, hold on and don't let go, because God will. God will take care of you. Beneath his wings of love abide. God will take care of you. I'm out of here, y'all. Greatness is calling. I'm done now. Greatness is telling me to still fight on. And every time I try to quit, Dre, I tell myself I'm too legit to quit, because the ground is no place for a champion. Can I get a witness here? I heard Muhammad Ali when he was over in Zaire and he was about to fight in that bad thriller, and he had somebody bigger, somebody greater. I heard a preacher talking about him the other week, and he was talking about he leaned on the rope in order to take the hit. But here's what he had to do while he was still on the rope. He had to talk, and he talked to his enemy. And while he was walking through, they were chanting at him, Ali Boombaye, Ali Boombaye. And he kept on fanning them, and he kept on telling the children, and he told those babies, keep on talking. And the reason why is because when the old folk are counting you out, you ought to get some children that's telling them, Ali Boombaye. What they were telling him is, go on and kill him, knock him out. Even if you ain't big enough, you don't look bad enough. But you ought to listen to a child that tells you, greater is he that is in you. Ali heard the children's calling like Jesus did on his way to Calvary. He heard the cries of the children in walking Jerusalem. And when the children cried and the voices cried, he began to say, out of the mouths of babes and sucklings comes perfected praise. He went on to Calvary and he cried out, it is finished. Why was he talking? Sometimes you ain't talking to your enemy. You're talking to yourself. Look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, I talked to you long enough, but the reason I'm talking now, I'm telling myself, you can make it. I'm telling myself, you can handle it. I'm sick of talking to my neighbor because my neighbor don't believe I can do it. Put your hand on yourself and tell yourself, it's gonna be all right. You can make it. God is with you. Hold yourself, rock yourself, talk to yourself, and say, greatness is in me, and greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. I'm greater because my coordinates are not set for local jobs. Why do I keep moving after great falls? Why do I keep moving on after great mistakes? Why do I keep pressing on after I've had great challenges? It's because I'm not at a dead end. I'm being rerouted. Y'all missing what I'm saying? And the only reason why you get rerouted is because something in the coordinates knows your destiny. Only way you can get rerouted is when the GPS recognizes you have not yet reached your destination. And the only time that you get that voice that says you have arrived is when you get to your destination. So that's why you couldn't quit after the first and second and third chance. And the reason why you're walking in with now, and don't stop with LPN, get you some more letters and some more initials, because when you stopped at a block, God just says, I'm gonna reroute you another way. If they close the door, climb through a window. But I'm not gonna quit. Because Abram never stopped because his coordinates wasn't Canaan. His coordinates was glory. The reason why I keep pressing on the upward way, new heights I gain every day, still praying as I onward bound, is because I'm not going to quit until the Lord plants my feet on higher ground. Lord, lift me up, that's my prayer, and let me stand by faith on heaven's tableland, a higher plane than I have found. I can't quit until my feet strike higher ground. Is there anybody here that's headed for higher ground? Is there anybody here looking for that city whose builder and maker is God? Yes, we have this house in tents, earthly tabernacles, that the excellency may be seen of God and not of us. But when this earthly house, this tent has dissolved, when I take my tent down, don't you cry over me. Don't you be sitting up here lying about how much you love me and ain't done nothing. Don't you be talking about what a great pastor. No, just say he took his tent down because he moved into his building now. Because my GPS led me to a place where the streets, and as soon as my feet strike Zion, come on here, I said, as soon as my feet strike Zion, then I'll be able to hear him say, well done, you have arrived. Until then, I'm pressing on, the door's open, the upward way. Oh, new heights I'm gaining.
every day. Is there one? Still praying as I onward bound. Oh Lord, Lord, plant my feet on high, yeah, higher ground.